with everybody in the Bay. And we were just so happy when Gurma gave us the opportunity to host her for Sakhi Saga, because we really want to hear from speakers who have that kind of deep, immersive experience in Krishna consciousness. For us who are like skipping stones on water, these are the people we want to meet, the ones who actually took a deep dive, who know what's underneath. We never got a chance to get that far. So we are very, very happy to have her here. Masi, let me know when it goes live. Went live? Okay.
I will share to you.
Share it. Okay. So we'll try to get this link out so that more people can benefit from Mataji's sharing. But we'll start with Mataji introducing herself, her journey, and what brought her to this point. I'm so curious because the first time I'm seeing Mataji was in Vanaprastha, and all our Shastras tell us women are always with a Prabhu, like you have your father, your husband, and your son. So when I heard that Mataji was in Vanaprastha, I'm like, okay, this is a Mataji I really need to hear from. This is so interesting, right? So,
should we start with some little kirtan? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
One more time, all together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Very nice to be here in the Saki Sangha, the association of friends, Vaishnavi friends, something that we all need, right? We need to have Vaishnavi friends. Because, as ladies we have a experience of life that is specific, right? Something that experiences that we go through, feelings that we have, challenges that we face, a little different from what the men in our life go through, right? So we need each other's support and empathy, understanding. So it's good to come together and discuss these things which are particularly relevant to Vaishnavis, to mothers and wives and daughters and sisters and like that. So this is very special and so nice that you have this in your community. I think it's quite rare actually, right? That you have regular Vaishnavi Sanghas. So something you should try to maintain, right? It's worth it because we can help each other when you're going through struggles, and struggles will come. Not that they won't, they will come. That's for sure because it's the material world. And so we need each other's support. So, you invited me to talk about a little bit about my journey in Krishna Consciousness and raising children in Krishna Consciousness. So I'll try to talk about that a little bit. Offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarne. Only by Srila Prabhupada's mercy that we're here, right? That we, at least myself, that I know anything about Krishna. And that I have this wonderful process of bhakti, which has made everything so wonderful. So, I came to Krishna Consciousness in 1992, and that's 34 years ago, and counting. And I joined in London, Soho Street Temple. And so that's in central London. And so I became a brahmacharini. Brahmacharini is something that Srila Prabhupada basically started. Brahmacharini ashram. One time I was giving class in Mayapur, and I was giving Bhagavatam class in the temple, and then I mentioned something about when I was in the Brahmacharini ashram, and then I told some relevant story from my life. And then later someone raised their hand at the end. This brahmachari, Bengali brahmachari, raised his hand. He said, Mataji, you said Brahmacharini ashram? What is that? I never heard of that. And I was like, this is Srila Prabhupada's strategy for Western preaching, Brahmacharini ashram. Because in India they have only Brahmachari ashram. I mean, maybe now in some ISKCON temples they've started brahmacharini ashram, but it wasn't really a thing. But when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, then he was going out and doing kirtan and holding programs, and so both men and women were coming, and mainly young people, so they weren't married yet. And also in America at that time, especially the 60s, it was age of like freedom of expression, and so it was a very liberal time, and so young women who were not married, they weren't necessarily living with their parents. They would leave home, and they had an apartment, or or they moved in with their boyfriends or whatever. They were like just living a free, independent life, and so they were coming to the temple like that. And then Srila Prabhupada, so he was saying, okay, the boys, you can stay here in the 26-second app, but if you've ever been, the 26-second app is very small. It's like the size of, we went to a program last night, Mantra Room, and it's kind of like the same size. It reminded me of it's this long, narrow storefront. So the boys can stay there, and then but the girls were kind of like, well, what about us, Srila Prabhupada? And he said, oh, we don't have space for you here. So the girls were coming, and they wanted to come for Mangalarti, but it was far away, and they had to take the subway, and it was night, 4 o'clock in the morning on the subway in New York. That was not very safe. So then Srila Prabhupada, he was thinking, well, they're not with their parents, they're not married, and they don't have anyone to protect them. So, he said, I need to give shelter to these girls. So then he started women's ashrams, and then it became a thing. Every ISKCON temple had men's ashram, women's ashram. So when I joined in London, it was like that. Central London is this tall building, 5 or 6 floors. So the ground floor is the Govinda's restaurant. Then upstairs there's the temple. Next floor is the pujari room. Next floor is the offices, temple offices. Next floor is the women's ashram, and then top floor is the men's ashram, brahmachari ashram. So so that was existing. And then when I joined, I just moved into the brahmacharini ashram, became a brahmacharini, and it was really nice because you're right there living in the temple, and we all felt like we're just living in Krishna's home. We're just living here in the servants' quarters of the king's palace, and the king is Krishna. And we're all here just to serve him for his pleasure. So we all had our different services, and it was nice because you just wake up, and wake up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and shower, put on sari, tilak, go downstairs to Mangalarti, and then whole morning program, right? Mangalarti and Tulsi Puja and Japa, and then greeting of the deities, right? Darshanarti, and then Guru Puja, class, breakfast, and then after breakfast we all had our services. So everyone had different services, right? Some of the ladies were sewing clothes for the deities, because back then we would do all the deities' outfits ourselves by hand or sewing machine, but we had a room for that, the sewing room. Nowadays everything gets done in India, right? You just design it and then get the cloth walla there to sew it, right? So, but they used to do everything, every festival. So that was there. And that was actually, the sewing room was in the women's ashram. It was like one room in the women's ashram, because only the ladies would do it. So that was nice. So some of the girls were sewing, some were cooking for the deities, cleaning the temple, or serving in Govinda's restaurant, or we had also a little boutique, working in a boutique, and girls were going on book distribution. So it was such a nice life, right? Everything that you do, and then you just do your service all day, take prasadam with the devotees, Sandhya Arti, everyone comes together for kirtan, and then after that we maybe do some Krishna book reading, hot milk, bananas, everyone goes to bed. It's just such a sweet life. Very nice. So, yeah. And so I was distributing books. My service was book distribution. So every day I would go out into somewhere in different parts of London, or some of the cities around London, towns and cities. And then later we started the boys were going out and traveling Sankirtan. So they had these vans. We had 3 vans. The boys were going on the van, sleeping in the van, traveling around every town and village, distributing books all day. And then they go in the van, drive to the next town, wake up, take their morning shower in the parking lot. At night we'd stop at the gas station. We had all these empty milk bottles or something, and then we'd just go to the gas station, fill them up with water, and then that would be our water for everything, in the morning. And then we would just park in a way, like we parked the van in a way that's like, because we had a simple van, we didn't have a shower in the van, so then we just parked in such a way that like the side of the van would open up against the, like some bushes or something like that. And then we opened the back door of the van like this and the front door of the van like that. And they would hang like a curtain all around, and that would be our little shower there in the parking lot. So then, you just take the bottle of water. So that was good. And then get dressed and out on book distribution all day. Get in the van. Go to the next town. So I did that for years. Yeah, I did that for years in the UK, like 3 years. And then went to Scotland, did basically the same thing. And then I came back to London, and I met my husband then. So yeah, 5 years of Brahmacharini ashram, and then I was 26 years old, and I was thinking, you know what, I think it's time for me to move on in my life. Desire to get married and have children was very strong. So yeah, but it was interesting because how I'm sure you experienced this also, how we go through like phases of life where our psychology is very different. So like in young age, you just want to kind of like, it's sort of like the age of exploration, right? You want to learn, you want to study, you want to have experiences, you want to travel, go to new places, go on adventures, sort of like, so that Brahmacharini phase was very nice for that, because we were traveling in the van, going to different towns, seeing different things, meeting different people, and and during that time I was just like, no thoughts of marriage, it's just like, this is the life, I could do this forever, Brahmacharini ashram ki jai. In fact, we would look at all the married women with their husbands and their children and their houses and their apartments, and we'd be just like, like poor them, because we were enjoying life so much, just another adventure in Krishna's service, and so ecstatic going on the Harinam, and cooking in the van, and it was just a great life. Distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and then we would come back, and then we would be like heroes coming home from the battlefield, everybody would be like, yeah, the Sankirtan girls are back. So
Mataji, how many of you were?
But just in the van was small, so we would have either 3 or 4. We couldn't take more than 4.
And we rotate that? Or like
What's that?
The same 4 people for all
No, it would rotate. It would rotate whoever was available, right? Like, I was always there. I was always one of them. And the other girl there was another girl that was pretty much always there. But then sometimes some girls would be visiting from another temple, like for the summer or something, so they would join us for that time that they were there. Sometimes even there was one mataji, she was actually married, but she really liked book distribution. So during December, she took off her December holidays, and then she took all of her sick leave from work, like 2 weeks, and then she put it together so she could come for the whole month. So she joined us, and that was sweet. And before she had children, it was just she and her husband, so she came. So it was always rotating like that. Yeah. So, but then, then it's just funny how like things change. I don't know if it's just natural psychology, stage of life, hormones, or whatever. But you come to a certain age and you're just like, this is not working anymore. You start feeling like, I need to be in a different situation, right? And then desire to have children becomes very strong. I don't know. For me, at least, it was not so much like I want to be married, I want to be with a man, but it was like I want to have children. That was like, for me, it was like, okay, I really want to have children, and you need a man for that, so I need to get married. So, yeah. So anyways, then I met my husband in London. He was living in the Brahmachari ashram and doing pujari service, and he was dressing the deities, cooking for the deities, doing the temple banking, giving classes. So he was also a nice devotee, full-time devotee, waking up early, and I mean, how it happened was that so those first 3 years when I was in London, I was there were many Sankirtan devotees. But after that, the leadership and management of the temple changed, and such that a lot of the Sankirtan devotees ended up leaving. They weren't so inspired to stay there. And that's why I also left. I also went to Scotland because I wasn't so inspired to stay there under the new management. And so, but then my spiritual master, my first Diksha Guru was there in Scotland. And then he sent me back to London because London temple was, because all the Sankirtan devotees left, they were like financially struggling, because the temple was, there was basically like, we weren't getting, it was just like a Western community. This was back in the 90s, before we had all the support of the Indian congregation. So like the income of the temple was just from Govinda's restaurant and from the book distribution. And so then when the book distributors all, disbanded and went their separate ways, then Govinda's restaurant, it wasn't enough to like pay the rent at that time. Now the temple's paid for. That time we were paying rent, and it was like, central London rent for a 5-6 story building was a lot. So the temple was like financially struggling, and I was a good Sankirtan devotee, big collector. So then my spiritual master said, I want you to go to London to save the temple, basically. So I was like, okay, fine. So then I went back to London. But when I went back, because there were no other Sankirtan devotees, I was trying to, encourage other devotees to come out in book distribution and develop a nice Sankirtan team again. But in the meantime, the whole prasadam situation at the temple was just for temple devotees. So they have a very light breakfast, they have a big lunch, and then nothing much for dinner. Because everyone had such a big lunch, they didn't need dinner. So, but because I was going out all day, and the big meal, which was the main meal, I had to miss. So then I was just having like a light breakfast, and then maybe saving a little bit of bread or something, taking it out with me, and then coming back and being like really starving and malnourished, and So then my health went down, and temple president he saw that I was, sick and not very healthy, and he said, are you okay? What can we do for you? And I said, I think I need like decent prasadam. So he said, how are we going to manage? He said, okay, we'll figure out, we'll find someone to cook for you in the evening. So then the person that got to cook for me was the person who would become my husband. So they say that the way to a man's heart is through the stomach. So I guess it's true for women also. So anyway, so he would cook, and he would like make soup and chapatis and things, and they would be waiting for me when I came home in the evening, and then, and then while I was eating, he would be like reading Krishna Bhog. And then he started, because he was cooking the Raj Bhog, the midday offering for the deities, so he started packing that up, do the transfer, wash all the dishes, and pack for me, and then bring it out to me on the Sankirtan spot, and then so I'd be eating lunch, and he'd be like reading Srila Prabhupada's quotes about book distribution and things like that. So then, we just ended up becoming a couple, and then we got married. So so that's how I transitioned into Grihastha ashram. But then we thought that because I was doing book distribution, my husband was also very supportive of book distribution. So then we thought, well, if we can maintain the temple through book distribution, then why not maintain a family through book distribution? So then, and also I always had this thing that since I joined, because I joined, and when I joined, the ashram was full of ladies, and a lot of brahmachari and both ashrams were full, packed with devotees. And then as the years went by, and people kind of like coupled up and left the ashram and moved out and got married and got jobs, and then they kind of like, I don't know, they just got really busy with their work, and then they stopped coming to temple. They weren't able to come to morning program very much, so you didn't see them so much. And so there's this mood like, everybody's just going to get married and get a karmi job and just bloop. So, this was ISKCON way back in the day, right? Now the whole culture is different and everything's different, but that's how we saw it. So we're just like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to just get married and get a karmi job and bloop. We're going to stay in the fire of full-time service and distributing Prabhupada's books, and, why not? So that's what we did. So when we got married, instead of, getting a flat, getting an apartment in London, we bought a van, and we just went down to the BBT and filled it up with books, and then we just set off on traveling Sankirtan. So before I was doing traveling Sankirtan with the other girls, and then now I was doing traveling Sankirtan with my husband. And we two would go out together and distribute books. So that worked out well, and it was actually like really nice because we were working together. It was a very ecstatic service to do, and we had we could just we had total freedom to decide on our schedule. We could take all the festivals off. We could go to India when we wanted to, and like that. So it was a good life. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of austerity, but it was good. And then, so we did that for a little while in the UK. And then we thought we should come to America. So my husband's Brazilian, and we thought we should go to America. He can meet my family. Also, his guru is in America, so he thought I should meet his guru, Vridananda Das Goswami. And he thought he wanted to get an instruction, like, let's go meet him and we'll get an instruction for our married life together from the guru. So I thought that sounds nice. Let's go get an instruction. And then we'll have some clear direction for our Grihastha ashram. So we went and we flew to LA and we met him there. And then he said, well, I said, we just got married, we came here, we don't really know anyone here, and we don't know, what the situation is, what the needs are, so please just instruct us. And so he sent us to Atlanta. He sent us to Atlanta Temple. He said, Atlanta Temple is really struggling, they need some help. If you can go there and just add some positive energy to the community, and maybe do book distribution, do Harinam, and get devotees engaged, make everybody, raise some enthusiasm there. So we're like, okay, Guru says we're going to do it. So we just got the next flight to Atlanta, and we showed up there. And then, the fact that the statement that the Atlanta Temple needed help was an understatement. It was really in bad shape. It was in such bad shape so we got there and we were like, all right, first day here, we're gonna, plug right into morning program and everything. We're used to waking up early and everything. So we get up 4 o'clock and we go there down to the temple for Mangalarti, and everything's dark. Not a single light on in the temple building. And so we were like, oh, this is really strange. Mangalarti should be starting any minute, and no sign of anyone. So we go in and everything's closed, temple's locked. And then, so we're like, okay, well, we'll just chant japa. So we chanted japa, and then around 6:30, the first devotee kind of emerged from the woodwork and unlocked the temple. And we were like, what happened? He came from Mangalarti. He's like, oh, we haven't done Mangalarti for a long time. We're like, what? You've got Radha and Krishna deities here. You've got Radha and Krishna, big Gornitai, Jagannath Bali Subhadra. So anyways, he said, no, we're a little bit understaffed. So anyways, one thing that we were like, no, you have to, this is Prabhupada's temple. Prabhupada installed these deities, and we need to keep the standard here. And so anyways, we revived the Mangalarti. So we did what we could. We cleaned up the temple and raised the standard a little bit, and engaged devotees, and started doing book distribution and Harinam, and that was all good. But then it was time for us to move on after a while. And then, and another thing that happened in Atlanta was that our first daughter was born. So Subhadra was born there, and that was nice. And then when she was, so we stayed there until she was a little bit, she was still quite small when we left. And then we were traveling with the baby. So we were traveling Sankirtan with the baby. And that was fun. Yeah, that was actually really exciting. But then we didn't have a van. We bought an RV, like a tow behind the car RV. So we had a van, and then we also had the RV. So that's good, because the RV had a bathroom in it. We didn't have, so we could take care of the child nicely. And so I was going out on book distribution. My husband was taking care of the baby all day. And then, so I was breastfeeding, right? So then I would be on book distribution, and he would be there, somewhere nearby in the parking lot or something. And then he would just, every 3 hours, he would just bring her to me. She's hungry, and then I would sit down, breastfeed them, give her back. So we were living like that. And somehow it was working. Yeah. So, let's see. So then when my daughter was 1 year old, then I think what happened is, because we were traveling a lot, we were visiting different temples, different devotee communities. And my husband was being a little, whenever we visited a community that was predominantly a Grihastha community, he was being very observant, is this a place where, eventually we would like to settle and, have the kids, go to school or, be part of the community here. And then nothing was really satisfying to him. So my husband's quite a strict devotee, so he's like, yeah, everywhere I go, I just see the kids. They're just like, they're eating all kinds of stuff, and they're like, they just seem to be like a little bit Maya, basically. So he said, I think what we're going to do is we'll raise our children in India, in Vrindavan. Because before we met, he had lived in Vrindavan as a brahmachari. He lived in the brahmachari ashram there in Krishna Balan Mandir for 6 months. He got a 6-month visa and he stayed there. And he was doing deity worship and kirtan and so forth, different services there. And he had a great time. So he, lost his heart in Vrindavan. So he's like, okay, we're going to move to Vrindavan. Then I was like, oh my God. Because after we had gotten married, we had gone to Vrindavan just to visit. At that time, actually, he was planning to spend the whole 6 months there with me. But then I got like really sick because what happened was my first time to Vrindavan, I was like, oh, this is Krishna's place. Everything is spiritual. Everything is transcendental. This is like the eternal, Goloka Dham descended to this earth. And I just want to just soak everything up. So then one day we went to the Yamuna. So we go to the Yamuna. He's like, oh, let's bathe in the Yamuna. I was like, I just had this whole romantic idea about Yamuna, like Krishna used to swim here every day. He would come here, with the cowherd boys, and they would play, and the cows would drink the Yamuna water, and then Krishna would also have pastimes with the gopis. They had all kinds of water sports, splashing each other in the Yamuna. And this water touched Krishna's body. It's so pure, like his whole body was just like full body abhishek. Every time he went to the Yamuna. So I was like, oh my God, and now I'm going to go into that same water that Krishna went in. This is so exciting. I just can't wait to get purified. So I go into the Yamuna, and then I submerged myself, and I went down as deep as I could go. And then I was like, you know what? Not enough that I'm getting purified on the outside. I have to get purified on the inside too. So I just started drinking the water. I was under the water, and I was just like, guh, guh, guh. And then next day, I was in trouble. I was just like, my whole system was messed up. For the rest of the time, all I could do is just go from my bed to the bathroom. And then I literally thought I was gonna die. And then, I told my husband, I was like, I think we just need to go back to the West, and I need to get better. So we left after 2 weeks, and he was very disappointed because he wanted to stay for 6 months. Anyways, we came back. It took me a month to get over that, I got some parasite or something in my system. But anyways, I came back to health after a while. So then when he proposed, we hadn't gone back to India since, but when he proposed that we take this 1-year-old child to Vrindavan to live, not just to live, I was just like, the child is going to die. I was just like, no, out of the question. I nearly died. And I was young and strong and healthy. And I was thinking, the little kids, they put everything in the mouth. They're just all over the ground, and then they don't think to wash their hands, and they put things in their mouth. And I was just thinking she's going to pick up a piece of dried monkey stool and start chewing on it or something. I was just imagining worst case scenario. But he was so no, we have to do this. This is going to be good. She's going to grow up in the spiritual environment and the holy dham, and, because the thing about kids is they're I was saying this in the program yesterday, they're like little sponges. They don't have filters, they don't have developed intelligence enough to discriminate between, what's favorable, what's unfavorable, what's right, what's wrong. They just, whatever environment they're in, they just soak up. So he was thinking in the US, it's such a materialistic culture that if we stay here, he's going to, start thinking that the goal of life is to earn money and this and that, and get things and get the latest phone and the latest whatever. And so he's like, I don't want her to have that way of thinking. So let's go to Vrindavan, and she'll just soak up Krishna, right? Because everybody's chanting. There's kirtan. Wherever you go, you're hearing kirtan. Wherever you look, there's devotees with tilak and bead bags on their hands and chanting and doing parikram and temples on every corner, So he's like, let's just go there, and they can grow up in that spiritual environment. So we went, and Yeah, it turned out to be, I mean, it was definitely challenging because that was like, we moved to Vrindavan in 1999 and it was very, very austere. And like, it's very different. Now you can basically like near Krishna Balaram Mandir, you can just get everything that you need, right? So many nice fruits and vegetables and all kinds of like, everything that you need, all the basic needs are there. You just go and it's right there at your fingertips. It wasn't like that before. Like if you wanted to buy any kind of like boga, you had to go all the way to Loy Bazaar area and Sabji Bazaar, and you had to do battle there with a zillion people and these bulls roaming through and monkeys jumping all over the place trying to steal my glasses, and a baby in one arm and a monkey on my back and a bull coming to trample me, and it's like 45 degrees Celsius, and like that. I don't speak the language and I'm trying to like do business and the people are trying to cheat me, and anyways, so it was not easy, and the kids did get sick, but they didn't die. They got malaria, they got this, that, and the other thing, but anyways, they survived it. So, and it was really good. It was actually really good. I mean, the strategy worked, at least I think so. So we stayed in Vrindavan for 10 years, and then, so we'd be there for like, 9-10 months out of the year, and then for the summer months, when it got like really hot, then we would go back to the UK, and then we would do book distribution. So that's how we were maintaining family. It's just like doing 2-3 months of intensive book distribution. I mean, I was doing 1, 2 or 3 months of intensive book distribution during the summer, and then we were just living very simply, just like living in a van or with a trailer or something, and traveling around town to town, and traveling Sankirtan. And my husband would take care of our daughters, and I would be out on the street. And we'd do that, and then we'd go back to India, and then live the next 10 months there, just peacefully at home, doing service in the temple, hearing and chanting, going parikrams and things like that. So it was nice. I mean, it was very nice in that we could always be with our children. The kids, and they were always with one of us. There was like basically never a time when they were not with either one of us or both of us. So that was nice. They always felt very protected, and that's very good for children. So I remember one time when my daughter was in middle school, that they had let's get there a little later. So we stayed 10 years in Vrindavan, and I was homeschooling them. So I'd be homeschooling them in our house in Vrindavan. And then when some other matajis who had small children around the same age found out that I was homeschooling our daughters, because there was no school for girls in Vrindavan. A school for boys was there, but not girls. So they said, "Oh, you're homeschooling your daughters, can you also teach my daughters?" And then, so we started like a little homeschooling collective, where we ended up with maybe like 12, 14 girls, and myself and another 2 mothers were sort of like teaching different things, doing different activities, managing stuff for the kids. So that was really sweet. We did that for a few years. But then, so my younger daughter was born. She's 4 years younger than the first. And then, so we thought of, my older daughter was learning really nicely with homeschooling. She took to it very well. She was, reading and writing and doing everything. And it was nice because we did all the Krishna conscious things. We celebrated all the festivals, and they did Krishna conscious dramas, and the kids would go out on Harinam and do like little mini Ratha Yatra through the neighborhood, and everybody, all the Brajavasis were like, oh, they really liked it. So, but then when my younger daughter got to be school age, then I was trying to teach her, how to read and write and do math and all these things. And she was like, no. She just refused to learn from me, basically. Like, she was like, my mother, you're not my teacher. And she would literally, she's very intelligent. She's like super intelligent, but she would just totally dumb up. I would ask her the question, she would just be like, I don't know. Like, she didn't know it. And I would teach her, I would explain everything very nicely, and then when it's time for her to do it, she'd be like, I don't know how to do it. And then I'd be like, I just explained it. She's like, well, I didn't get it. I was like, should I explain it again? No. I was just like, how are you going to learn? She's like, I don't know. So anyways, it wasn't working. And then, so I had to talk with my husband. I was like, this girl needs to go to school. We need to figure something out for her. So then And during that time, we were visiting Mayapur every year for Gaur Purnima festival. That was kind of like our family holiday. We get on the train, go to Calcutta, and go take it. So that was like, and for them, Mayapur was so exciting and so active, especially during the festival time. So many things going on. It was like Disneyland, for the kids. I remember one time Jayapataka Maharaj came in. Oh, the thing was, one time when I was pregnant with the first one in Atlanta, Jayapataka Maharaj was this was before his stroke. He would come there a lot. I think he was a co-GBC there, so he would visit a lot. And then I remember one time we met with him, and I was pregnant, and then I asked him to please, I said, Maharaj, please bless my child to be a pure Gaura Bhakta. Because he's so into Gauranga and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Lila. So that was my request to him. So I said, please bless the child. We didn't know what the boy goes. I said, bless my baby to be a pure Gaura Bhakta. And he was like that, right? So then later, this was years later actually, when we first started going to Mayapur. And then he saw me, and he saw that I had 2 children. And then he said, oh, you remember our name. He said, Prabhupada Priya. And then I said, yes, Maharaj, so nice to see you. He said, I said, I'm assuming this one is your oldest daughter. I said, yeah. I said, how is she doing? He said, she's very nice. She's very happy to be in Mayapur, and very nice devotee. And he said, and then I was so surprised that he remembered it. He said, remember that day that you asked for blessings? I said, yes. He said, I gave my blessings. He was kind of like, this child will be a pure Gaura Bhakta. Like, that's going to happen. And that happened. The girl is like an amazing devotee. She's like going out in the streets of England selling sets of Bhagavatams and doing Harinam and Kirtan all the time. And yeah. So anyways, so because we would go to Mayapur once a year, and it was such, we would have a great time in Mayapur. It was a fantastic time in Mayapur. And then we'd go back to Vrindavan, and then it was like kind of like austere again. So the kids loved Mayapur. And we also, while we were there, one of his friends was living there and had kids in the school, Sri Mayapur International School. So we went to visit the school one day, and we were just kind of looking at it. We weren't really sure, we were just seeing the school. So we went home, and then came to the point where Krishna Baba, my younger daughter, she was like not learning, and then I had to talk to my father and my husband, and then he said, let's just go to Mayapur then. So I was like, woohoo! So yeah, because also Vrindavan, not only was it just physically austere, but it was also kind of socially austere at that time, because the mood there, it wasn't a grihastha mood. It was like a renunciant mood. A lot of brahmacharis there, and even the people who are not brahmacharis, even the women there, they were mainly like, wearing white, and everybody there was just so, just like very kind of austere and renounced, and it wasn't a very family-friendly environment. Like when I would come to the temple with the kids, everyone would just kind of look at, it wasn't like, hey, kids, and there weren't a lot of other families with small children either. For some reason, I guess because the mood didn't support it, they didn't feel like welcome to something. But yeah, I didn't feel very welcome either. So, but in Mayapur it was a totally different situation, right? They had like 3 schools going on, so many kids, a lot of children's activities and things. So we were so happy. I was so happy. So we all went. And then we moved to Mayapur. And then that was great. I felt, literally when we moved to Mayapur, I felt like I just left my body and went to the spiritual world. It was like so nice. Yeah. And then so we enrolled the girls in school, and they just plugged right in. Like my older daughter was 10. And she had been nothing but homeschooled, but she just plugged right into her grade for her age level, and she was really happy. And then the younger one, she was 6. So they started, she started in reception, but then she skipped up to grade 2. And the school was small, and they didn't have enough teachers for all the grades. So I think the year that we went, they didn't have a grade 1. They had like a kindergarten, they had a grade 2. So then she thought, well, she hasn't been to school before, we don't want to put her in a grade higher, let's put her in the grade lower. But then the next year she went to grade 2. Or grade 2. The next year she like skipped the whole 1 year that she was. Anyways, so they did well at school. They were really happy, and so many kids. And I mean, that was great. You know, I think the devotee school, going to devotee school and living in the Dham, it was like, it was really like, I felt like it was a good decision. You know, even though I was resisting it at first, just because of the health factor, but it was really good. So, you know, association is really everything. That the association, so, you know, they were able to, the school was all devotee kids, all devotee teachers, on the ISKCON property, in Sri Mayapur Dham, you know, and so we would take them to the temple in the morning for Mangalarti, and then we would chat a little bit, and then have breakfast, and then take them to school, and school all day. And then I started teaching. Yeah, that's what happened, is that they needed teachers, right? So my husband was like, very protective, so he told me that you can't just take the girls to school and just leave them there. Anything can happen, you know, like anything can happen. So he said, you take them to school and you just stay there. So I was like, nobody does that. He's like, no problem. You just stay there and you just be around, you know. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went there, and I would just, you know, they would be in the classrooms, and I would just be sitting on the swings, you know, chanting, or I would go to the school library and get Bhagavatam and be reading, and then during lunch break I would talk to them. Whenever they had breaks, I would talk to them. So then the principal of the school, she saw that I was just like hanging around the school all day. So she was like, obviously this woman has nothing to do. So then she started engaging me in services. She's just like, yeah, we have some kids that like their English is their second language and they need some extra help with reading and so forth. Can you maybe do some one-on-one classes with tutoring with them? So I started tutoring kids, and then just tutoring one kid and then tutoring another kid, and then she was like, oh, you know, I teach a class, but I have some meetings at that time. Can you maybe cover my class? And so I started covering her class now and then. And she's like, actually, we need to do all the assessments the last 2 weeks. Can you just do my class for the whole 2 weeks? And then, so I'm doing her class for the whole 2 weeks. And before you know it, I just became a full-time teacher. Without even ever having like applied or going through the whole process or anything like that. I was just a full-time teacher. Which is really funny, because later it was, anyways, long story, I won't get into details. But, the school had a thing that if you're a full-time teacher, if you're a teacher at the school, you get one kid tuition free, and the other one you get half. So they came, the finance person of the school came and said, oh, you know, you have to pay the school fees for your daughters. And I said, well, the thing is that I'm kind of teaching at the school. And then she said, well, how many classes do you teach? And I was like, well, I think I'm teaching like 27 classes a week or something like that, which was probably more than full time. And then she said, oh, well, you need to talk to like kind of like the HR person to get like on the, you know, there was no record that I was a teacher. It just all kind of happened very like organically. And then anyways, that was all arranged. So then that was really sweet, because I was teaching, and then I started teaching my older daughter's class. I could never teach my younger daughter's class. It was really funny, because I was teaching English and, you know, science, and I was teaching Shastra and things like that. And then it came to like a certain year group where my younger daughter's class, they had an English teacher, but the English teacher had to go. I don't know what happened. She just couldn't stay. She was a foreigner, and she just got fed up with India or something. She's like, I gotta go back home. So then in the middle of the year, she just left. And so they asked me, there was a situation, they needed an English teacher. So Krishna Baba, my younger daughter, she was very proactive. She was just like, whatever you do, don't get my mother. And so the principal was like, are you kidding? Your mother is like the best English teacher in the whole school. She's like, she's my mother, she's not my teacher. So she stayed with that. And yeah, so I never taught her. I never taught her again. To this day. So yeah. Sorry. But yeah, it was really good, because of course my husband and I were doing everything that we could to, you know, make those girls Krishna conscious, like everything, you know. Like there was just no space for Maya in those girls' lives. So it was like, temple program in the morning, and then when they were home, like in Vrindavan when I was homeschooling them, reading them the Krishna stories. And then, when I saw all these little Krishna dolls, I remembered that because there was one Mataji, Prabhupada disciple in Mayapur, Rimati, and she made I think she was the first one to start making Krishna dolls. And they were a little expensive actually when she first started. I mean, they were very well made, but they were a little costly for those of us who are living in India, not having much of an income. But so I started making dolls. So I made a whole bunch of little dolls, right? I made a Krishna, I made Balaram, I made a baby Krishna and a baby Balaram, and I made Hanuman, and I made the whole Panchatattva, and so they had all these dolls to play with. And then there was another Mataji in Mayapur that she's Polish, and she got, you might have seen these, she would get like wooden, like a little wooden, how do you describe it? Like pieces of like round wood, and they would put it on the lathe and make them like this, and then with a head, and she would paint them. So she had all these sets. She had Krishna and Radharani and all the Ashtasakis, and she had the set that was like, there's Singadev and Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu and all that. And then she had another set that was like Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Hanuman, Sugriv, and Angad, and all that. And then so she had all these sets. So we got those. So everything was just. I think the first like toys that we ever got my older daughter was we went down to Loi Bazaar, and they had these little Gornitai deities that were that big, little brass deities, and then she really liked them, and I bought them for her to play with. I think she was like, maybe she was like 4. And I was like, these are cute. Like, I mean, instead of having Barbie doll and Ken doll, you get Gornitai. She can dress them and bathe them and put jewelry and whatever. So she used to play with those Gornitai. They cost 15 rupees, 15, back in the day, but they were very cheap. So anyways, she would be playing with them, and they'd be like, on the floor and stuff like that, like kids, they'd be toys lying around, but they weren't installed or anything, they were just her toys. So, and now she still has those little Gornitai, and she worships those Gornitai every single day. And she makes clothes for them, and every day she gives the water, she offers fruits, and she dresses them and bathes them, and she travels everywhere with those deities. So, very sweet. Yeah, she's very devoted to those deities. And, and we would get them to chant. So one thing is, like, a lot of people have a hard time getting the kids to do sadhana, right? But I feel like we just, in our family there was just no alternative. We would wake up and we would wake them up. We wouldn't just like let them sleep. We would wake them up and take them. They could take a nap later in the day, but we really wanted them to be up in the Brahma Muhurta. So we'd take them to the temple, Mangalarti, and then we'd come back home, and then we would chant. So then my husband and I are chanting, and there's nothing else happening, right? There's nothing else to do. So then we would just give them some beads, and they would just chant. From the time that they could basically talk, they started chanting japa with us, and that was the only thing that was going on in the house. And they want to be a part of things, and so they would just chant. Or they wouldn't chant like 16 rounds or anything, but they would chant for a while, and then when they got a little tired of chanting, then they had some Krishna coloring books. They would color, they would draw, and look at Krishna picture books or something. And then we had all these. Nowadays there's so much for kids. Back in that time, there wasn't many resources for children. Everything that came out, any children's book that came out, we bought. Any like audio stuff, like kids songs, cassettes, we bought. And then when we were in the car, we'd put the kids' cassettes in the, the music thing, and then we'd in the car and we'd sing all those songs. So we just kind of like expose them to so much Krishna consciousness. But even then, I can't take full credit for, getting them to actually make the decision to be devotees. Because even with devotee kids, it's like, no matter what you do, they have to decide. They have their free will, and they need to make the choice that I am going to practice Krishna consciousness. I am going to do sadhana bhakti. I want to be a devotee of Krishna. So I think that there was my older daughter. She had a friend who was really nice devotee. This girl, her mother's Indian and from it's called Manipur, and her father's French. So anyway, she came in high school. She came to Sri Mayapur International School, and she was in the same grade as my daughter, and I was teaching both of them. Really, really nice girl. So then, and she's very enthusiastic, very bubbly, very enthusiastic, and she'd be like, Subhadra, let's read. So during lunch break, they would eat lunch together, and then she'd be like, let's read Srimad Bhagavatam together, Subhadra. So they would be reading, and then they started, they kind of like took one of these vows, like, Vaisheshwar Guru does these, like, finish the Bhagavatam in 5 years or 2 years or something. So they decided they're going to finish Bhagavatam in, I don't know how many, 2 years or something. We need a certain number of pages a day. So they wanted to do that together. And yeah, then I think it was Kartik was coming up, and then her friend was like, hey, let's do 16 rounds. So Subhadra, I think at the time she was doing 10 or 12. She was gradually, I told her, why don't you do this? Like every birthday, you add 1 round. So then, she was, when she was very small, she was already doing like 4 rounds. So then each year on her birthday, she'd be like, okay, 5 rounds, 6 rounds. So she was up to like 10 or 12 or something. And then her friend challenged her, let's do 16 for Kartik. So they started doing 16 rounds for Kartik. And then, yeah, I think this friend of hers was just so encouraging and so serious and so inspiring, actually, this girl. Her name is Lalita Krishna. And her parents are disciples of Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. And she was just so inspiring. She was just such like a natural devotee. In fact, I was like convinced that this girl was like a Prabhupada disciple in her past life, because she was just so into, she just loved anything about Prabhupada. If you spoke about Prabhupada or anyone who was a Prabhupada disciple, she would go up to him and be like, tell me about Prabhupada, And she just wanted to read Prabhupada's books, and she would just get so ecstatic with Prabhupada's purports and everything. So, very, very special soul. And I think that it was, I think my daughter told me that it was because of her that she really decided to, be a devotee, like dedicate her life to serving Krishna. So, yeah, I felt very fortunate that she was, in a school or had a friend, had that exposure to a friend who was so Krishna conscious. So, I mean, obviously, like, you're probably not going to just be like, all right, tell your husband we're moving to Mayapur. Kids in devotee school. And I think, like, nice, there's a preschool here, but I think there's not like a established devotee school. In Dallas, we're lucky we have TKG Academy that's going. It's not huge, but it's continuing. But like I was saying at the program yesterday, at least, even if the kids have to go to a public school, but at least, bring them together with each other whenever you can. Like, bring the kids together, they can play together and do Krishna conscious activities together and do service together, doing things for festivals, like making decorations for festivals, or doing dramas together, or readings, or get them to read together, Krishna conscious activities together. I know there's so many things for that, right? There's so many, like, Gaurangi Gandharvika was my student in Mayapur. So yeah, when she started coming to school, I think she was in grade 9, and then I started teaching her Bhakti Shastri from grade 10. We started doing a full Bhakti Shastri course for the last 3 years of the high school, for the high school students. It was a 3-year course, because we had just like a 1-hour class, and we kind of stretched it out and went really deep, really in depth over a period of time. So I think in the final year of that course, she asked me to write a letter of recommendation for her initiation. Because I told them that you're all doing Bhakti Shastri, so you got 3 years. So the requirement that I was working with Mayapur Institute, Atul Krishna Prabhu, and he said that, so the requirement is that to get the degree, you have to be chanting 16 rounds for at least 1 year before you get your degree. 16 rounds and 4 regs. Of course, all the kids were doing 4 regs, but 16 rounds, not there. So I told them from the beginning, I said, so you've got 2 years to work up to 16 rounds, and then that last year of Bhakti Shastri, you need to be chanting 16 rounds every day, and then you can get your degree at the end of the course. Otherwise, you can fulfill all the requirements for the degree, but I can't actually give you the certificate until you've been chanting 16 rounds for all a year. So then the ones who are really serious, they're like, we're going to do it. So they started gradually, increase. And I would ask them, I was keeping track, like every month I would ask them, how many rounds are you doing? How many rounds are you doing? And I had like a spreadsheet, with all their names and how many rounds they're doing. So then that encouraged them, someone keeping them a little accountable. So there are a few of them, there are like maybe 6 or 7 of them, like, we're going to do this. So then, and then they got their degrees. And there were 3 of them that last year. So Gaurangi Gandharvika was one, and then a Brazilian girl, another one, and then another girl, Nanga Gopi, who got married to a boy and still lives in Mayapur. So, So then Gaurangi went on to, write these beautiful children's books, right? That, what are they called? Krishna's Becoming Your Devotee. I think the first one's Becoming Your Devotee.
Yeah, Becoming Your Devotee.
And then the second one?
Part 1, part 2 to that also.
Yeah, part 1, part 2, and then she came out with other resources, Ashtasakis and Panchatattva, and she does these online summer camps and Purushottam month challenges, and so I'm very proud of her and very honored to have been her teacher. So so now we have all these resources, just avail yourself of all of these things and sit down with kids and just go through all these activities and try to get them engaged and thinking about Krishna and cultivating them to, in this trajectory of becoming Krishna's devotee. And any children that are born into your families, they're already coming from some background of Krishna consciousness. So it's not like, it's kind of like you just have to, it's already like dry wood, right? You just have to put the match there and So, making devotees from scratch is like, it's like trying to ignite a wet log. You have to just dry it and dry it and dry it and dry it. After years, maybe, it's going to spark up. But these kids, they're like dry wood. You just need to keep exposing them to the fire of Krishna consciousness. And,
Mataji, since you raise them all through their ages, and most of the time, elementary school, the parent is more interested in raising the child. And then once they get to teenage, they're raising themselves, basically. They're figuring out who they are, whether they want to be a part of this family, this community, whether they want Krishna consciousness. Like you said, the I entity starts picking up. When you raised your children, could you share the challenges that you had to face going through that phase, that rebellious?
I mean, they never got rebellious, but they did. There's a certain age where they shift from, being influenced by their parents. So when they're babies, they're just totally influenced by their parents. So when they're small, that's when you really have to be very active, right? You have to really just like feed that, just like bring them to the temple, engage them in things, bring them to kirtan, and teach them how to recite Bhagavad Gita shlokas and all these things, right? Learn all the Krishna stories and all that. So because then they'll do it. They'll just do what you have them do. But then comes a time where gradually, it's not like a day and night shift, but it's gradually, they're less concerned about what you want them to do, and they're more concerned about what their friends want them to do, right? So that's how this girl was able to make my daughter a devotee, basically. I mean, we had already definitely primed her, we had definitely made everything, and then, so when they get to be teenagers, then their association is very important. And it's nice that in this area, Vaishesh Guru does the youth sangha, youth jam, right? Yeah. He works a lot with the youth to bring them together and keep them, have a inspiring sangha. And personally encourages them a lot and takes them on yatra. I participated in one of Vaishesh Guru's youth yatras because at that time I was in Krishna House Gainesville and I was teaching and working with young devotees. So I had a whole bunch of young devotees between the ages of 19 and 30, basically. And so I was anyways organizing a yatra to India. And then I think, I wrote to a Prabhupada disciple and I asked him for his blessings for this yatra. And then he said, maybe, I think Vaishesh Guru was going around the same time. Maybe you can, I think he's doing a youth thing. So maybe you can, join forces with him. So then I wrote to Mother Nirikul Prabhu and I asked her and she's like, that would add a different dimension, because it's all these Western kids. So that was good. So we did that. Yeah, we met him in Puri We made our own way to Puri, and we were there, Jagannath Puri, and then we rode back and we did Mayapur. So we were together for the whole yatra, the whole youth yatra, which my yatra was a month long, and his was 10 days. So we were there before and we did some things in Mayapur. Then we did 10 days with him. And then when they all left, then we continued our yatra a little bit more. But it was great, and the youth. It was nice. It was so well organized, and I liked how there were a lot of like youth-led activities. Right, so a lot of like youth empowerment,
Yes.
and that's really important.
Gurudev really values. Well, Gurudev tried with us, but we are like wet logs. So Gurudev noticed that our little kids, because we all came into Krishna Consciousness, we got married. If not the first kid, the second one was born into the movement. And then Gurudev noticed that, well, those are dry logs, and these wet logs are taking a long time. So he kind of. And we are so grateful to him for doing that. So he puts his heart into the kids.
Yeah.
Doing that for a while.
So it's good. So even though you don't have a devotee school, at least not yet, but
We're working on it.
good. Yeah, that'll be the next step, I think, for this community. There's so many nice families and very serious Grihastha devotees and kids coming up. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So honored to meet you personally. I've served with you briefly. Mataji, just listening to your story, I was thinking it's very ideal for me, at least. I know for most of us here, it's very ideal. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and our lives are very different. We have a Karmi job, we have a house that we are maintaining.
Yeah.
We don't even have a strong footing in our own spiritual life like you had when you were 26 and 30. After having my daughter, only I had this urgency that I need to be the best role model. Only then she can copy and she can emulate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
How do a person like me raise a daughter like this? And she's also like one of your younger daughter, She's strong-headed. My mother's not a teacher, so I can't teach her. And I don't think I also enjoy teaching her because she behaves the same way. When I'm asking her to write L, she will write it quite opposite, but I know she knows how to write it. So how do we maintain everything and also be a good devotee and a mother and a parent, and at the same time raise our kids as well in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah. So, I mean, children learn by imitation, right? So the best thing that you can do is just be a really good example. Like everything that you want your child to be, you exemplify that, right? So if you want the child to eat only food that's offered to Krishna, then you make and your son or daughter?
My daughter.
So your daughter, 4 years old, is old enough that they can understand like what's going on. So one thing that I used to do, it might seem kind of strange, but it was really good for the kids, is that when I was doing things, I would kind of like while I was doing things, I would be saying what I was doing and what I was thinking while I was doing it. Kind of like what do you call it? Like a news, I don't know. Anyways. Commentary. It was like a running commentary on like everything that I was doing. So, for example, we had to go buy boga, right? We needed food in the house, right? Go grocery shopping. So I'd tell the kids, all right, so now we're gonna go buy boga for Krishna, and we'll get to the supermarket. Okay, what do you think Krishna wants to eat this week? Right? And they're like, oh, Krishna likes this. All right, so let's go find it. And then we're picking out, Krishna wants bananas, so we go to the fruit section. Okay, so find some really nice bananas. They shouldn't have any marks on them because it's for Krishna, So they're picking out the bananas. Oh, this is really perfect. I think Krishna's gonna like these. Okay, you put those in the cart. And then like that. So we're getting everything, and it's all for Krishna. And then when I'm going to cook, it's like, okay, now we're going to be cooking for Krishna. So we need this, that, the other thing, and then I'm getting them to do whatever they can. So at 4 years old, they can use a peeler, right? So I get them to like peel the carrots, peel the potatoes, and help out in whatever way they can. Make sweet balls, they can make the balls, roll them, and so forth. So engaging them and just being like, this is for Krishna, has to be really nice. And then time to offer. So then get the kids to do the offering, right? They can put everything on the plates and and it doesn't have to be perfect, like I would get my daughter to roll chapatis and they'd turn out like, but it's okay, And then she'd be so happy to take that, totally wonky chapati and put it on the offering dish and put the tulsi there and take it over there. And then, when they're small, they can memorize things really easily. Even if they don't know what it means, it doesn't matter. They'll figure that out later. But you just get them to memorize everything so they can learn all the mantras. They can recite the mantras really nicely, ring the bell, do the offering, pay obeisances. And then I taught my kids, I think they still say this, but so we had at that time in Vrindavan, we had Jagannath Bali Subhaja and Gaunitai. So then they would do the mantras, and then they would say, "Dear Shishi Jagannath Bali Subhaja, Shishi Gaunitai, please accept this offering offered to you with, please accept this food offered to you with love and devotion." And then they would say obeisances and leave it here and then do that. And I just would engage them. Just engage them and also just be commenting on why we're doing this, reminding them that who is this for, right? And be like, everything has to be really clean, so like don't peel the bananas yet. First we have to wash them because we don't know who touched that and what they touched before they touched that. And Krishna needs everything clean because he's pure and he needs everything pure and he likes things clean. And even like, as far as cleanliness, it's like, don't leave things lying around your room. Keep it nice and neat and tidy because Krishna likes things clean and we want Krishna to be happy with us because we're Krishna's devotees, and that's what, and the success of life, that's what, you'll be happy when Krishna's happy. And then, so clean all the room and then wipe everything nicely, floor, and then be like, so how does it feel now? Oh, it's so much better because Krishna's happy. So like that, just kind of like just keep orienting them towards a lifestyle in which everything is for Krishna. That I do everything for Krishna, you do everything for Krishna. And then they just get kind of like molded in that way, that life, activities are done as offerings to Krishna. Everything that we do is for Krishna, somehow connected at least. Even like in school when we were doing the homeschooling, we'd be talking about, learning English. So, if they have to write write an essay or something like that. So be like, yeah, it's important that you learn how to write because, see how Srila Prabhupada wrote so many books. He did all that in Krishna's service. So, and he wanted all devotees to write their realizations. So you need to become a good writer. You need to be really good at communicating through writing so that you can write articles to help people understand Krishna consciousness. You can write books about bhakti, about the science of practice, how to teach people how to practice Krishna consciousness. And so, yeah. And just everything, like even math, like you need to be able to do math because you need to be able to calculate things like, in Krishna's service, who knows what you're going to be doing, and you need to understand like how to add things up, how to take care of accounts. Maybe you'll be a treasurer for the temple, or maybe you'll be, an engineer and you'll have to make calculations about, densities and pressure and things like that. And who knows, how Krishna's going to engage you. And so you need all these fundamentals there so that you're prepared to do whatever Krishna wants you to do in your life. So, like that, every subject, it would start with like a little introduction of how this is connected to Krishna, why it's important. So you may not be homeschooling the children, your daughter, but you can talk to her about why it's important to go to school and take your education seriously. When she comes home to do your homework, you can explain like how this is connected to Krishna consciousness and your future as a devotee and things like that. To just keep orienting their consciousness that way. That this is why we're doing things. Yeah. Yes.
So when I tried to introduce, like my son used to go with me along whichever program I used to go temple and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tried to connect everything to Krishna, the way you mentioned, there was a point where he was like, stop saying all the time about Krishna. I'm just
enough is enough.
Yeah. So, and then I had to literally control and have to. So I see that children get exposed because we are living in a society. He's going to public school and because of situation within the family as well. So, so I just feel that there is only till certain level that we can help.
Yeah.
But after that, we see them kind of a little getting less interested, and they want to make their own choices in life.
Yeah.
So, however, as a mother, we are unable to digest that.
Yeah.
So how can we still help them, although not directly?
Yeah. I mean, you continue being a good devotee and pray for them, and then just try to direct them towards opportunities, right? Like something like going on the youth yatra, or like if the youth are doing something. So I know, like in Dallas, so now I live in Dallas, and Dallas has a really, they have like a strong devotee youth, and so the youth are all, they do things together. So they like to do things that are not necessarily Krishna conscious, but at least they do them together, right? They'll go out and play volleyball or something, right? And they'll do that together. They'll go out to eat. They'll go out for pizza, at some pizza place, and they'll get vegetarian, vegan pizza or whatever. But they'll do it together, So they're not necessarily doing like the most Krishna conscious things. They'll go watch just a non-devotional movie, but they'll go together. So at least, so that kind of like, it kind of keeps it within limits, because there's like an understanding amongst the devotee kids that like, okay, we're going to enjoy ourselves and we'll do some stuff that our parents probably think is Maya, but we're not going to go too far, not going to stretch it too far. And then they also do Krishna conscious things together, right? So they're also like really into kirtan. So they'll get together like every evening, and Sunday evening after the Sunday feast, and it's the youth kirtan, and they'll all be there, right? No matter what other nonsense they've done during the week, but they're all there in the kirtan. And they're like 4 mridanga players, and the harmonium, and it's like really good kirtan. And sometimes like festivals, they'll organize festivals, or maybe one day they'll just cook the Sunday feast, they'll cook the whole Sunday feast, just a lot with them. And so so try to, even if they want to do things that you may not necessarily approve of or think are the greatest things, but at least encourage them to have devotee friends, because with devotee friends you're always going to come back to Krishna. I mean, I was even hearing there's one devotee who's actually like a super nice devotee now. He's actually like a leader and like a ISKCON leader, and he was born in the movement, and he said that it was like that. He was always with devotees, but he said that it came to a point where they did get a little wild, and they actually started going to bars together, and then so they would go to these bars and nightclubs, but they would go like en masse, like all the youth, like 25, 30 of them. They would just go to this nightclub and they would just take over. And he said, I don't know why, but he said we were worse than the non-devotees. Like the non-devotees were drinking, but not the way we were. Like we were just going totally overboard. Those guys would get totally crazy drunk and be dancing and all this stuff. And they did that for a while. And then after one time they were just kind of like hanging out together, and they were just like, you know what? This is so stupid. Why are we doing this? Like, are we just like rebels without a cause? I mean, are we benefiting from this at all? Like, how is this helping us in our lives? And then they all just collectively decided that they weren't going to do that stuff anymore. But they just kind of had to go through it, they just sort of had to experience it. And now it's like they're all just really good devotees. They're all like doing good service and taking up leadership positions, because it's almost like they kind of like experience the other side, and they realize it's just disgusting and degrading and it doesn't feel good. And he said that whenever they would do it, they would always feel bad afterwards. So then they would start talking about it. It's like, how do you feel? Terrible. And then, it was all the same. They all feel terrible. Not just physically terrible from like a hangover or whatever, but like terribly guilty, because they know it's just wrong. Something deep down inside. And I was telling them this is just like sinful, And so, and then there's like, why would we do something? Why do we keep doing things that make us feel bad in every possible way? This is just not intelligent. So then they stopped, and then they started getting more serious about Krishna consciousness and taking shelter.
It must have been tough for the parents when they went through that stage. Parents must have gone through
their
own personal hell.
Yeah.
As they watched them
For
on the
sure.
sidelines.
Yeah. But the thing is, when I was teaching in Mayapur, one time Mahatma Prabhu came. And so Mahatma Prabhu, he's really good with youth too. And one time the youth, there are all these ISKCON youth that, there's a whole generation that maybe had been abused and things like that, and they had all left and gone away. And so they were kind of this group of disgruntled youth. So then they had a meeting with Mahatma Prabhu, and Mahatma was speaking to them very, compassionately, encouraging, and this and that. And then, but some of them were actually very angry, and one of the complaints was this, that because Mahatma Prabhu, most of them were Prabhupada disciples' kids, and so they look at Mahatma Prabhu as like, in the same cohort as their parents, and then, so, and he also says that his daughter came later, but she's not in that generation, but he's a Krishna conscious parent. Anyways, so one of the complaints that they had was, he said that we tried so hard to not be devotees. We did everything that we could to forget Krishna, to obliterate our consciousness, to just disassociate ourselves from you and everything that you represent. But this Krishna consciousness that you put into us when we were little kids, we couldn't get it out of us. So Mahaprabhu was telling this story to all of us teachers at Mayapur International School. And he was saying, put as much Krishna consciousness as you can into them while they're little kids. They won't be able to get it out of them. even if later when they become rebellious teenagers and they try to give it up, they can't. They're always going to come back. They're going to come back because it's deep. It's deep in them. It's something very, very deep. So even if it seems like our kids are going through a bad phase and they're rejecting it, they don't want to hear it, like there's some solace there. That the Krishna consciousness that we give them during their formative years, it doesn't go away, right? Krishna says that in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. So all of that, all the activities, all the Krishna conscious activities that we engage them in, they got the spiritual credits for that, and that's eternal. It's never going to go away. It's Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that cannot be lost. Even if they try to lose it, they can't lose it. That is with them for eternity. And it's just a matter of time before, it's going to come up again to the surface and they're going to pick up where they left off. And we see that happens. It happens with kids, it happens with devotees, and devotees that tried to bloop. In LA we have Rameshwara Prabhu, he was gone for so many decades and then just came back. So it happens. It'll happen. So we just need to keep try our best, and trust that Krishna is going to take care of these souls, that they're very dear to him.
Mataji, before we continue, it's 1:45. Unfortunately, because of circumstance, we could not feed Mataji her lunch on time. So Mataji is also waiting with us. So before we get to because we have to close the live call, we will do more questions.
Okay.
But we wanted to also hear from Mataji about her books, because Mataji is first and foremost a book distributor and a preacher. We would love to hear about her books, and she's brought them here for us today. So we wanted to give Mataji opportunity to talk about that.
Sure.
And then one or two more questions, and we'll close at 2. We have to stop at 2. We'll start serving lunch if Mataji is interested. We can serve her lunch as you're all eating, and then you can continue if you'd like to spend more time with her. But we want to make sure that we give her time for this.
Sure. Thank you so much. All right. So I have 3 books that I've written. The first one is a small book. It's an introductory book to Krishna Consciousness. So all those years of book distribution, I was coming to know that a lot of people, because mainly I was distributing books to Westerners in the UK and the USA, and people have no background in any kind of Vedic culture or Krishna consciousness, and that they were having they were struggling to understand Srila Prabhupada's books. So I thought I'm going to produce a book that's super easy for Westerners, brand new people to understand, and that's this one. So it's an introduction to Krishna consciousness. It's very relatable, very easy to understand. Basics about who am I, why am I here, how does 3 modes of material nature influence me, and what is the process of bhakti, what is karma, and this and that. And it ends with the 5 processes of bhakti, 5 potent processes, and the benefits of practicing them and how to practice them in your everyday life. So it's rising above it all, higher consciousness, happier life. And next one I did was kind of with the same inspiration, was the Living Gita. This is a Bhagavad Gita that's very easy to understand for new people, for people who are new to Krishna consciousness, or young people, even teenagers can read this. It's I broke it up into sections, so it's a little bit. It goes, all the verses are here. It's complete translations and commentary, and it goes verse by verse. But I put similar verses together, comment on them together, and made sure that it all flows very nicely. It's applicable and easy to practice, so that everyone can live the Gita and apply it in their lives. And this is my latest book. This is a really wonderful book. It's all about chanting. It's called The Ancient Roots of Kirtan. So it establishes the philosophical and theological basis of chanting Hare Krishna. And so this book has everything that you need to be totally inspired to chant Hare Krishna for the rest of your lives, and to convince everybody else to do the same. It has over 500 scriptural Shastric references from different books like Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahma Samhita, Sri Harinam Chintamani, and so forth. You'll see footnotes at every page. So you can find out more, or just know that this is very authorized, that everything here is super authorized. And so it goes through everything from the science of chanting to the process, how to chant, how to adjust things in our lives to get the most out of our chanting, how to adjust our inner consciousness to really go deep in the holy name, and then the culture, right? The culture that Srimad Bhagavatam presents to facilitate and nourish our chanting. So this is really good.
Will you be coming to the temple today evening, Mataji?
So after this, we're going to San Francisco. We're doing the Bhakti SF program, and then depending on what time that finishes, we're going to try to come to the temple. If we can get to the temple before 9 p.m., we're going to try to, because I would also like to meet Vaisheshika Guru and Mother Nirkul Guru. So let's see how that goes. Hopefully it works out. But so we have books on the table there. So please pick up your copies, and Pragati and Bhanamukhi will help you with donations. So as I said, I'm a Vanaprastha, full-time devotee, and
Actually, before we wrap, that was my starting question.
Oh, about Vanaprastha ashram.
Me, so I really need to hear the answer.
Okay.
You walked us through your brahmacharya. You walked us through your brahmacharya life, and then you've guided us through the Grihastha ashram. But we missed the part where you became what you are today, and also about Krishna House, and how does that fall into your picture?
Okay, I can speak a little bit about that. Yeah, so it's kind of like, when Srila Prabhupada was in his Grihastha ashram and everything, his business was growing, the family was growing, everything was going well for a while, and then all of a sudden things started shifting. His wife started turning against him. She sold his Bhagavatam manuscript for tea. And then, one of his employees, stole money from the treasury, and then one of his warehouses burned down, and Srila Prabhupada was just like, okay, Krishna, I'm getting the message. It's time to wind up the business, wind up the family. So basically that's kind of how it started going for me, relationship with my husband became difficult, and different things in my life just became, I just started getting a lot of very clear signs from Krishna. And then so I consulted my spiritual master, and he said, time for you to move on. And then I said, where should I go? So he said, Krishna House, Gainesville. And it was interesting because before that, when my older daughter, she was thinking, she actually wanted to go to university. And she had the total encouragement from her spiritual master to go to university. So when we went, and he suggested Krishna, University of Florida in Gainesville is a good place to go because they have Krishna House there. It's an ashram where students stay. You can have a whole morning program. You can live with devotees. You just walk 5 minutes to do your classes, and then you have your sangha, and you can be very Krishna conscious, and even you can eat on campus, and they have programs on campus. The campus is like an extension of the temple, So we went there, and we met Kalakanta Prabhu, and we stayed at Krishna House for a couple of weeks, and we visited the Kal. And then when we got back after that, then her father, my husband, said, forget it, you're not going to university, that's the slaughterhouse of the intelligence, and you're going to get bad association, and anyways, you're a girl, you're going to get married, you should just serve your husband. So my husband's very conservative. What's the point of getting university education? You're not going to get a job, are you? Anyways, so she ended up not going to university. But then later, when it was time because I had been there and I, made friends and connections and I knew the place. So I felt like we went there not for her, we went there for me. Like Krishna made that whole arrangement that I get some, knowledge of that situation, because later when it was time for me to move on, then my spiritual master said, go to Krishna's Gainesville, you know Kalakanta Brewer, you know the devotees, it's Brahmatir Tabu is there, they're all going to help you. So, but for me it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult because, when I, as a wife and a mother for, over 2 decades, it's like you totally identify with that. Like, I identify that who am I? I am the mother of these daughters. I am the wife of this husband. Everything that I did was for them. As a mother and a wife, you just you forget about your own needs. You just forget about any aspirations you had for your future, and you just dedicate yourself to your family. Right? That's what women do, isn't it? Men don't do that so much. Men, they continue with their careers, their aspirations, their promotions. But women, a woman is willing to just give up her job, renounce her degree, whatever she has to do for the family, right? So, so I was just totally invested in my family, and my whole identity was just so wrapped up in those 3 people, And then when it was time for me to just go start a new life, I was just I got to Gainesville and I was literally just who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? I didn't even think about my own future. I thought about my children's future. I thought about my husband and what he might need, and his old age, and because he's quite a bit older than me, and how can I serve them, and how can I facilitate? And now it's just oh my God, now I have to figure myself out here. So it took me a while, but Krishna's Gainesville was the perfect place to do that. It was a perfect transition because there was so much support. Kalakanta was a devotee who is so encouraging, so accommodating, and he just wants to lift everyone up. Right? As this he just wants to boost everyone up and enable them to be the best devotee they can be, just show them opportunities, open up doors. And so, I'm so indebted to him for, receiving me there, accommodating me, facilitating me, engaging me in service, and helping me to grow and to really be able to do so much more. I think Krishna got to the point where, in my Grihastha ashram, my husband was being very restrictive. Right? When I was teaching at the school, I was quite happy, but it came to a point where he was I don't want you teaching at that school anymore because, there are male teachers there and they might try to talk to you. Anyways, he got very, just stay at home, and I was giving Bhagavatam classes in the temple, and he said, I don't want you giving classes anymore, attracting attention to yourself and so forth. So, and I was going along with it, but just tolerating it, and things, and then different senior devotees started talking to me what is going on here? You're just sitting at home, you have so much potential, you're such a great preacher, you're such a great teacher, everybody loves you, everybody wants you to be, doing services in these important areas where we need people like you to do services, we need competent leaders and teachers, and and I was just what can I do? I have to follow my husband kind of thing. And then Krishna just arranged the whole thing. Krishna just literally picked me up and put me, in the space where I needed to be to grow so I could actually serve him to my full capacity. And at a capacity that I didn't even know that I had, crazy. Krishna just, he's no, everything that you think you could possibly do, that and 10 times more. So, by the mercy of the devotees. So it became very nice, not everything, the only drawback was that I was separated from my family, because when all this change happened, then my husband kind of cut me off from my daughters. So for 7 years I didn't talk to them. That was very hard. That was extremely hard. And I cried many tears over that. But by Krishna's grace, just in recent years, things are coming together again as the girls are growing up, getting independent. Now they're both getting married, so everything is changing. So, Anyways, I think that also happened for a reason, because I was I was so attached to my daughters. And I think Krishna also, that distance was good. It gave me perspective. It gave me the space to grow, because I I needed to really kind of like, I think I needed to make a clean break in order to really reestablish myself in my own identity, you know. And I just needed the space to do that on my own. And now it's like my daughters, when I talk to them, they're like, we're so proud of you. You know, like, yeah. So, and yeah, so it's great, you know, it's great. And I felt like it was also good because it kind of caused me to open my heart. You know, because Grihastha Ashram, yeah, we were talking about this right in the house. The Grihastha Ashram, in Srimad Bhagavatam, I think Prahlad Maharaj says it's like a dark well, right? I mean, not Grihastha Ashram, family life. Materialistic family life is a dark well. It's like a deep, dark well that you can't get out of, and you can't see what you're doing either. You're just like, but, so Grihastha Ashram, like Krishna Conscious family life, it's not dark, right? There's illumination because there's knowledge. So the light's on. This is my experience. The lights are on. You can see what you need to do. There's purpose, and you're, you know, doing productive things. But it's still a well. It's still a well in the sense that it's kind of confining and it's kind of inward looking, right? Because the focus is on family. And whereas as a brahmacharini, I was going out and town to town and distributing books and preaching and doing programs and things like that for others, for the world, for everybody, for complete strangers. Then you get married, it's like, okay, now I just need to take care of these 2 little kids and, you know, my husband and the household and the cleaning and the cooking and trying to earn money, why, to pay the bills. And the focus becomes on, you know, it's inward, the family. And so then when I kind of got out of that, well, then it was like, wow, you know, it's like, it's not only these 2 girls that I need to care for. I need to care for all the new devotees that are coming, all the guests that are coming, the visitors, the students on campus that we're going and feeding prasadam to, and, you know, online classes that are far-reaching, and new people coming and they want mentorship and, you know, guidance and more classes. And so it just kind of like opened up, you know, in such a beautiful way. And I felt like, yeah, that it's needed. And that's what my spiritual master said. He said that, you know, come to America and preach. We need more people like you to just be available for the world, you know, to just give your association and speak and give classes and do reading groups and be a mentor and be a guru and all that. So, yeah, I just feel like it was, I mean, looking back, like when I was going through all that, you know, the separation from my kids and stuff, it was like really heartrending. But I feel like it was, looking back on it, I feel like it was purposeful. And I'm not sure what my husband told my daughters about me. I'm sure he said a lot of stuff that I probably don't want to know about. But it didn't touch the heart. You know, it didn't go deep. So, you know, I'm confident that my daughters still love me, and now whenever I meet them, it's just like that never happened. It's just like Yogamaya just covered that whole period. You know, it's just like we were just living together happily, just like yesterday, and nothing changed. Nothing is different. It's all just like as if, you know, we were all just living together like happy mother and daughters, and happy to be part of their lives again. So, yeah. Krishna doesn't tell us that it's going to be easy. And it usually doesn't work out the way that we think it's going to. I mean, I never imagined, like, you know, if you asked me in the, you know, in my 30s when I was in the throes of Grihastha Ashram, raising kids and living in Mayapur and, you know, all that with my husband and things, I never imagined that I would not be, you know, with them, you know, at any point in my life, you know. I know what kids would grow up and get married, but my vision for my Grihastha Ashram and Vanaprastha Ashram was that, you know, because my husband's also a good devotee, so I was thinking that the kids will grow up, they'll get married, and he and I will be like this power couple that, like, you know, like Vaisheshika Brahman and Nirkala, they travel and preach and do programs, and she supports him and he gives classes. My husband's a good kirtan leader, so I was thinking, well, maybe he can lead kirtan, I can speak, he can also speak. Like, there's one nice couple from India. Oh gosh, I always forget her name. Anyways, they'll like sit next to each other. When they're giving class, it's always the 2 of them together, and he'll speak, and then she'll speak, and then he'll speak. They got to take turns speaking, and it's just so sweet, you know? Really, really sweet. So I was thinking something like that. We lead kirtan, he sings, I'll play mridanga, and he'll speak and I'll speak, and it'll be really sweet. Encourage the grihastas and all this and that. But that just wasn't Krishna's plan. It just wasn't Krishna's plan. So, yeah. One instruction that my spiritual master gave me at the beginning of that, because I was like not sure what to do, he said, and I was really anxious about how my life was going to turn out and what was the right thing to do, and should I go back and should I try harder to make it work? And he's just like, Prabhupada Priya, I've got an instruction for you. Just go with Krishna's flow. He's like, you don't know how things are going to happen. I don't know how things are going to happen, but Krishna knows. And you just surrender to him, and you just tell him that whatever he wants, you're ready to do. And then as doors open, you walk through them. He said, all you have to do is not say no. All you have to do is not resist Krishna's plan. You just let go of anything that might be stopping you, and just go with Krishna's flow. So I took that. I was like, okay, that's easy. I can do that. Go with the flow, that's easy. So that's my daily prayer. Krishna, just please take me wherever you want to take me. Let me say whatever you want me to say, and inspire me to serve in whichever ways you want me to serve. And I feel a constant source of inspiration from within my heart, right? Like all of these books that I wrote, it was like from inspiration. And every class that I give is from inspiration. Every trip I go on like this, it's from inspiration, right? So I really try to, as much as interesting, like when I was a younger devotee, I would always roll my eyes whenever people were like, I just need to follow my heart, because I thought it was like so sentimental, and often it wasn't really, it was kind of like maybe following their sense gratification. Anyways, but I actually got to the point where I feel like, a lot of the time I follow my heart. If I'm inspired, and it was interesting because before this trip, I was thinking, okay, I want to find out all the topics for my classes because I want to prepare everything nicely. I'll make some PowerPoint presentations, I'll make some notes, do some research, make the classes really top-notch, But whenever I sat down to do it, like some classes, I was able to just do. Right, like tomorrow I'm doing a corporate program, so I sat down and I just did a really nice presentation, PowerPoint and everything. And then other classes, like yesterday I gave a class at Mountain House about, the topic was the history and glories of kirtan. Okay? So I was thinking, okay, I can, based on this book, there's so much content, I can put together some nice quotes and some images and every time I sat down to try to plan that class, nothing at all. I just couldn't even put my mind on it. I would immediately get distracted by something else. And I was just like, all right, Krishna, I guess you don't want me to plan this class. Am I supposed to just wing it? And then the answer from my heart was just like, you'll be fine. So then I showed up at that class yesterday, and I had the title, and I had maybe some ideas, but I had no idea what was going to come out. And then I just started talking, and it was the most ecstatic class in the universe. It was just like crazy ecstatic, and I was like singing. I was just like breaking into the song in the middle of the class. I was not expecting that was going to happen. Like I started singing songs that I didn't even know the words for, and then she had to look them up and things. But it was just so fun. And I was like, okay, Krishna, I get it. Like I trust you, that you've got a plan for me, and you're going to use me as your instrument, and I'm going to say what you want me to say, and I'm going to do what you want me to do, and I'm going to go where you want me to go, and I'm just going to go with your flow. So it's a really nice, and I feel like now, because Vanaprastha ashram, it's an ashram where no one's depending on me. I don't have dependence anymore, so I don't have that feeling. I don't feel irresponsible. If I was in Grihastha ashram and I was just like, yeah, then I might start feeling irresponsible. But now in this stage of life, it's like me, and I don't have things. I don't have, I'm not tied down to anything. I don't have like a mortgage or a car or, this or that. I'm just a simple person with, probably all my possessions in the world I can put in 2 suitcases and leave at the drop of a hat if I needed to, and so I can just go with Krishna's flow.
What a wonderful story.
from the Brahmacharya ashram, we've walked all our way from being free and flying back to being free and flying again. I really wish all my Sakhis had come. I feel so bad for everyone who missed this class. What a wonderful class. Thank you, Mataji. Your humility and your sincerity in sharing things as you've seen them, as it is so Prabhupada. We just love that. We really hope you will keep us in your radar and keep coming back. Our children will certainly benefit enormously from hearing your voice, because we raise them very Krishna-centric, but we also raise them in safe spaces to hear from people who stepped out of those boundaries and come back in, to bring their realizations in, is what really helps them grow. So I'm hoping that next time we'll get some more youth programs with you. They get to ask you their questions, and it would really help them. But thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. We've kept you hungry for a bit too long, so we will stop the live now. And then I know a lot of you have questions you want to ask Mataji. Just remember that Mataji has to finish her lunch, and then we have a class, Parikshit Maharaj's class at 3:30. So the hosts all will have to close down and move. So let's take maximum advantage of the opportunity. At 3, yes. So we want to, at least by 2:45, I want to wrap up and let everyone move. So with
and
that,
please get books, especially this one.
Yes.
And
anybody who's missing, like if you have a friend who you think will like it,